Whispers beneath Pittsburgh. The rain hadn't stopped for 4 nights straight. Pittsburgh's streets gleamed beneath yellow streetlights, and the sewer grates gurgled as they swallowed water streaming down from the sidewalks. The South Side neighborhood slept uneasily, windows shut tight, doors locked, but no one could explain why the air felt thicker than usual. Rebecca Lindstrom stood at the window of her third-floor apartment, staring down at the street below. She wasn't sleeping. Again. Her laptop glowed on the table behind her, open to a local news forum where people wrote about strange sounds. Someone had heard laughter. Children's laughter. From the sewers. Rebecca knew most stories like these were paranoia, boredom, or coincidence. But something about these posts made her stop. They appeared every night, always after midnight, always from the same neighborhood. And they all described the same thing: quiet, barely audible laughter rising from beneath the ground, as if someone was playing hide and seek in the darkness. She closed the laptop and poured herself coffee. Cold. She didn't care. Rebecca was used to insomnia. It had arrived 20 years ago with Emmy's disappearance, and hadn't let go since. Every unsolved case, every forgotten story was a way not to think about the fact that she'd never found the answer to the most important question of her life. But this time something was different. She felt it on her skin, as if the air trembled with something invisible. As if someone was watching her from below, through asphalt and concrete. Rebecca grabbed her jacket and walked out into the street. The street was empty. The rain had shifted to drizzle, and droplets hung in the air as if frozen mid-fall. Rebecca walked slowly, listening. Her boots splashed against wet asphalt, and every sound seemed too loud in the silence. She stopped at a sewer grate on the corner of Carson Street. Water gurgled somewhere below, but that wasn't the only sound. There was something else. Something quiet, barely audible. Rebecca crouched down and leaned closer. Laughter. It was so faint that at first she thought it was wind, or the echo of distant cars. But no, it was laughter. A child's laughter. Light, playful, as if someone was delighting down there in the darkness. Rebecca jerked back. Her heart pounded. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight, directing the beam through the iron bars. Water trickled down old brick walls, but nothing else was visible. Only darkness. "Who's there?" she whispered, not expecting an answer. The laughter stopped. Rebecca froze. The air became heavy, as if someone was holding their breath along with her. She caught a smell, damp, musty, with hints of mold and something old, forgotten. Then she heard something else. Quiet. Slow. Breathing. It came from below, from the darkness, as if someone stood directly beneath the grate, watching her. Rebecca quickly stood and stepped back. Her hand trembled, the flashlight beam trembling with it. Then she saw it. A small hand. Pale, almost translucent. It slowly emerged through the iron bars, fingers spreading as if reaching toward the light. The hand was a child's, thin, with small nails covered in dirt. It didn't move sharply or grab. It just reached, as if pleading. Rebecca would have screamed, but her throat seized. She stepped back again, and in that moment the hand vanished. Instantly, as if it had never been there. Silence returned. The rain resumed its noise. The street seemed normal, ordinary, but Rebecca knew. She had seen what she had seen. She ran back to her apartment without looking back. Her breathing was ragged, her hands trembling as she locked the door. She sat on the floor, pressing her back against the wall, and pulled out her phone. Her fingers dialed a number she hadn't called in months. "Marcus." Her voice was hoarse. "I need your help." On the other end came silence, then a heavy sigh. "Rebecca." Middle of the night. Another crazy thing. I saw something beneath a sewer grate. A hand. A child's hand. I'm not losing my mind, Marcus. I need to know what's down there. In the old tunnels. Beneath South Side. Silence hung in the air again. Then Marcus said quietly, "You can't go there, Rebecca. It's flooded. Has been for 30 years. I know. But something's there. And it's coming out." The next morning Rebecca sat in the city library, surrounded by old newspapers and archival folders. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she couldn't stop. She was searching for something specific, a mention of what happened beneath South Side decades ago. And she found it. The article was dated 1993. The headline was simple: "Orphanage evacuated after ground collapse." Rebecca read slowly, memorizing every word. St. Agnes Orphanage had been located at the corner of Carson Street, exactly where she'd seen the hand the previous night. After heavy rains, the ground beneath the building gave way, the basement flooded, and the children were evacuated. But at the end of the article was one sentence that made Rebecca freeze. 3 children went missing during the evacuation. Bodies not recovered. Search discontinued due to danger of further collapse. Rebecca closed her eyes. 3 children left down there, underground, in flooded darkness. And now, 30 years later, they were calling out. She photographed the article and left the library. The sun shone brightly, but the air was cold, as if winter refused to retreat. Rebecca made her way to Sarah Coleman's house, the woman who had left a message on the forum about seeing hands near her home. Sarah opened the door cautiously. She was young but looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in nights. Behind her in the hallway stood a little girl with wide eyes, Lily. "Are you the journalist?" Sarah asked quietly. "Yes. I want to know what you saw." Sarah nodded and let her inside. They sat at the kitchen table while Lily stayed in the living room playing, though Rebecca sensed the child was listening. "It started a week ago," Sarah began. "I heard laughter. At first I thought it was kids playing outside, but it was after midnight. Then I went out on the porch and saw—" She paused, gripping her teacup. "I saw hands. Small ones. They were reaching through the grate near our house. I wanted to get closer, but something stopped me. I felt that if I touched them, they'd pull me down." Rebecca wrote down every word. "And the toys? You wrote about toys." Sarah nodded, her eyes filling with anxiety. "Lily left her teddy bear on the porch. In the morning I saw it lying by the manhole. I didn't carry it there. Nobody did. It just ended up there. Like someone took it and placed it by the entrance. Like an offering." Rebecca felt cold creep down her spine. "Did you hear them speak? Voices?" Sarah shook her head. "No. Just laughter. And breathing. But last night—" She lowered her voice, glancing at her daughter. "Last night I heard someone whispering my name. Quietly. From underground." Rebecca felt her heart clench. They knew names. They called specific people. "Why you?" Rebecca asked. Sarah was silent for several seconds, then answered quietly, "I grew up in this neighborhood. My father worked at St. Agnes Orphanage. He was there the night of the evacuation. He never told me what really happened, but after that day he changed. A year later he killed himself. I didn't know why. But now I think he saw something. Something he couldn't forget." Rebecca wrote down the last sentence and stood. She knew the next step was to go down below. But she needed Marcus. He knew the tunnels. He knew how to reach the place where no one had walked for 30 years. That evening she met him by an old sewer entrance on the outskirts of South Side. Marcus stood by his van, holding a lantern and a map of the tunnels. "You sure?" he asked. Rebecca nodded. "They're down there. And they won't stop until someone goes down." Marcus sighed, opened the manhole, and began descending first. Rebecca followed. The darkness swallowed them both. The smell hit first. Dampness, mold, and something worse, the scent of stagnant water that had sat for decades. Rebecca stepped onto the tunnel floor, and her boots splashed into ankle-deep water. Marcus's lantern illuminated the walls, old brick, cracks, green patches of moss. Water flowed somewhere ahead, and the sound echoed in the darkness. The old orphanage was about 200 meters from here, Marcus said quietly, as if afraid to wake something. Flooded basement. Nobody's been in there since that year. Rebecca walked behind him, her breathing shallow. The air was heavy, thick, as if they weren't just descending underground, but into something alive that breathed with them. She turned on her flashlight and aimed the beam forward. The tunnel narrowed, the ceiling growing lower. Then they heard it. Laughter. Quiet, distant, but clear. Children's laughter echoing through the tunnels. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once, as if surrounding them. Marcus stopped, his face pale. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Keep going," Rebecca said, though her voice trembled. They moved slowly, step by step. The water grew deeper, now knee-high. Then they emerged into a large room. The ceiling had collapsed. Concrete blocks lay in the water, and in the center of the room stood something that made Rebecca freeze. Toys. Dozens of toys. Teddy bears, dolls, balls, old wooden blocks, all lying in the water, carefully arranged in a circle, as if someone had collected and placed them deliberately. In the center of the circle were 3 small figures made of stone and mud. They resembled children. Rebecca felt the hair on her neck rise. "They're collecting them," Marcus whispered. "The toys that roll to the manholes. They bring them here." Then the lantern light fell on the wall, and Rebecca saw writing. In childish handwriting, uneven letters scratched into old brick. "Help us. They left us. We want out." And the most terrifying, Rebecca. Her name, scratched on the wall, with fresh marks. She stepped back, and in that moment the water around them stirred. Ripples, as if something moved beneath the surface. Marcus grabbed Rebecca's hand. "We need to go. Now." But it was too late. They emerged from the darkness. 3 children. Pale, wet, their eyes empty as voids. They stood in the water, staring at Rebecca and Marcus, and their faces were calm, almost peaceful. One of the boys extended his hand forward, as if wanting to touch. "They left us here," he said quietly, his voice mechanical, devoid of life. "You won't leave us, will you?" Rebecca couldn't breathe. Her mind screamed for her to run, but her body wouldn't obey. Marcus yanked her hand, and they ran back through the tunnel, through the water, flashlight beams bouncing off walls. Behind them came laughter. Louder. Closer. And in the last moment, before they climbed outside, Rebecca heard someone whisper in her ear, "You'll come back." They emerged onto the street, gasping, soaked and trembling. Marcus fell to his knees, his face white, eyes wide open. Rebecca stood leaning against a building wall, her heart pounding so hard she feared it would burst out. "What was that?" Marcus rasped. "What did we see?" Rebecca didn't answer. She couldn't. She had seen their faces, their empty eyes, their reaching hands. Children. Real children who'd been left there 30 years ago. But they were no longer children. They were something else. For the next few days Rebecca didn't leave her apartment. She tried to write, tried to shape what she'd seen into an article, but the words wouldn't come. How could she explain this? Who would believe? The police would dismiss it as hallucination. People would say she was losing her mind. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that she kept hearing them. Every night when she tried to sleep, she heard quiet laughter outside her window. When she went outside, she felt gazes coming from below, through the asphalt. And one morning, waking up, she found something by her apartment door. A teddy bear. Old, wet, covered in dirt. The same one that had belonged to Lily. Rebecca grabbed it with trembling hands and ran to Sarah's house. But when she arrived, the house was empty. Doors open, silence inside. On the kitchen table lay a note, written in childish handwriting. "We took her home." Rebecca screamed. She called the police, but when they arrived, no one found any traces. Sarah and Lily had vanished. Without a trace. Without witnesses. Marcus called her late that evening. "Rebecca," his voice was quiet, fragile. "I heard my son. Tonight. He was calling me from the sewer. He says he wants me to come get him." "Marcus, don't go there. They're lying. It's not him." Silence. Then, what if it is? What if there's a chance? "Marcus, don't." But he'd already hung up. Rebecca sat in the darkness of her apartment, holding the wet teddy bear. She knew Marcus would go down there. She knew he wouldn't return. And she knew they would come for her too. Because she'd heard her own voice. Emmy's voice. From the sewer. Whispering her name. And saying, "Come home, sister. I'm waiting." Rebecca stood by the manhole on the corner of Carson Street. Midnight. Rain fell again, soft and cold. She held a flashlight in one hand, and in the other, a photo of Emmy, taken 20 years ago. A smiling girl with pigtails. She knew it was a trap. She knew that if she went down, she wouldn't come out. But part of her, the part that could never let go, wanted to see. Wanted to know. Wanted to hear her sister's voice one more time, even if it would be the last thing she heard. Rebecca crouched by the grate and whispered, "Emmy? Are you there?" Silence. Then, quiet laughter. Familiar. The same she remembered from childhood. "I'm here, Rebecca. Come to me." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. She knew it wasn't Emmy. Not the real one. But she didn't care. She opened the manhole, and began descending. The darkness swallowed her, and the manhole closed on its own with a dull thud. Above, on the wet asphalt, only the photograph remained. The wind caught it and carried it down the street, until it disappeared into darkness. And underground, in the flooded room, another figure appeared. Pale, wet, with empty eyes. She stood beside the three children, staring upward, where the light of flashlights no longer penetrated. The next morning in Pittsburgh, the sun shone brightly. People went to work, children ran to school. No one noticed that on the corner of Carson Street, by the sewer grate, lay a new teddy bear. And no one heard the quiet laughter, rising from below.